All right, we're going to do the first rant in a long time. I'm sure if you've been following this channel for a while, you remember when I used to do these, maybe even fondly so. I had strayed away from these for the longest time because before, when I used to do them, it was because I still had a Patreon and I was still unmedicated and depressed, and I very much felt like I owed people a lot more content than I was putting out, and I was doing rants as like filler. But now I'm doing the same thing with a different purpose. It's not so much that I'm not capable of doing proper writings. Believe me, I've got multiple in the works already, but it's more so that like some ideas I really shouldn't be trying to force into like a whole, fancy video. I think the best metaphor I can use is that if your car is in fourth gear in a residential, you either have so many illegal car mods that you can't count them on one hand and you're speeding, or you're an idiot. And like not every idea needs to be in fourth gear. Rants are for that. As cliche as this is going to sound, every now and then I'll listen to the talks of different mystics or interesting people, whether it's Alan Watts or in this case Terence McKenna, not so much because there's some kind of popular or respected demagogue or whatever, but just because the point of reading and taking in new ideas allows you to shift your perspective of reality in ways that allow previously unformed ideas to finally take shape. One of the last interviews that Terence McKenna had before his death, he was talking about how a mushroom
said to me once, it said, "This is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse." And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time.
Putting aside interstellar travel being some kind of final phase of human development. I mean, if you've ever read the story 17,776, first of all, you should, by the way, but second of all, I feel that's more realistic, where it's like, yeah, we realized that you can only get so far out into the universe with only so many materials, and it's boring, like just kind of realizing we're creatures of play, and our duty once we have solved all the world's problems is just to perpetually hang out. I love that idea. But anyways, hearing that phrase, I think, eventually formed the idea in my mind where it's like, I'm actually quite fond of the fire in the madhouse. I'm actually quite enjoying it. It's hard to be honest about that thought without offending people. I mean, especially a lot of millennials, all of them constantly are like, oh, I miss the old internet. I need a break for like a month, a year. I need things to just stop happening. You're not going to get that, and that's not what you need anyways. Like, simultaneously, there is a fire in the madhouse, but also nobody wants to put their oxygen mask on, and I think specifically why I can enjoy playing the fiddle as Rome burns, so to speak, is because I have my oxygen mask on, and it sucks because I know people want to be at this state where it's like, oh, how can I be happy about chaos? Like, whether it's a person who is trying to use self-help advice to fix something that they should be getting medicated for or switching jobs for or whatever, it feels like telling a person who should put their oxygen mask on, oh, just breathe a little harder. Maybe that'll help your oxygen go up. Just right. And I feel like I'm gaslighting people because it's like you should just put your oxygen mask on. But it's really hard to be honest about that thought because it's very easy for somebody to look at me and say, well, easy for you to say, Sasha, like you're privileged and you're living a much more cozy lifestyle. Of course, you're enjoying the fire in the madhouse. But first of all, people are allowed to give advice and also be honest about their previous struggles, regardless of whether or not they're privileged. But also, like, I was not at this point in my life 4 or 5 years ago. I was certainly in this bucket of crabs where I wanted to convince myself that all of the chaos was stuff that was going to be negative and every news headline was terrible and everything was going to go to shit. And that just isn't true, right? I think for a lot of the people who think that there's never good news or complain that nothing good ever happens, it's not that that doesn't, it's just that they assume they're living in a world where good things don't happen when in reality they don't take the conscious effort to find articles about positive news. I will say this until I'm blue in the face, but we are very much the victims of a system of media that for decades now has understood that sensationalism and doomerism is what gets clicks, especially with trans issues, because they know that those people are maybe honestly even the most susceptible to negative news because they're so used to thinking everything bad is going to happen and the rest of that. And not to say that it's easy for trans people, I would know, but just that seeing as they are the most vulnerable to this tactic, it is weaponized against them the most. I mean, two tactics, I think, two thoughts that I've kept present in my mind that help me enjoy this fire in the Madhouse is, first of all, I'd wished after Mango Mussolini got elected for his second term that, if things are going to get worse, I hope they're funny. And let me tell you, after the Kristi Noem situation and a lot of these other silly things, that wish has been paying dividends, and I still have yet to regret it. That's number one. But number two, I had to acknowledge that, as oxymoronic as it sounds, to take life seriously, I have to not take it seriously. When Roe v. Wade got overturned, I was genuinely so depressed in that moment that I had not taken care of myself. I had not showered for 3 days. I was miserable. And yeah, I took it seriously, but the problem is I took it so seriously that I'd let myself deteriorate. This isn't to say that you can't be sad about things, that you cannot be upset about the news, but rather part of the reason I make jokes about some of the horrible things that happen in politics, or even some of the worst things to happen in my entire life, I've made jokes about, and not just suicidality, but other struggles of mine, right? Is I don't do this to signal that I don't care or that I don't take it seriously, but rather I need to make jokes even in the absolute worst periods of my life or the worst periods of politics, because if I don't do so, I'm going to let these waters seep through the hull of my ship so much that it sinks, and then I'm going to have nothing. It's this tomfoolery. You can laugh at something and still take it seriously. People look back at the times of Weimar Germany where, Hitler, Chancellor Hitler, he was such a laughingstock and everybody made fun of him, and then he did terrible things. And it's like, are you trying to imply that just because people had humor that Nazism won? You're fucking kidding me. The people who want fun to be illegal, the people who don't want you to have a good time, laughing at them is the thing that's going to make you ineffective. No, shut up. Humor is not the reason that Nazis took power. Oh, people joked about them enough and nobody took them seriously. Listen, there's no way to make people take it seriously until they're ready to. As much as we would love to think that we would have saved them from it, or we gave them every warning and they still made the wrong decision, some people are just going to have the stove is hot lesson. You can tell them the stove is hot, you can tell them not to touch it, it's going to hurt, and they're still going to have to touch the hot fucking stove. Like, removing all humor from the equation is not going to suddenly save people from that. It is a world of people who are asking for shorter mountains and not better climbing gear. And I mean, holy fuck, if I've been given some tall mountains, there are certainly days where I think, I swear I didn't stutter. Did I accidentally wish for taller mountains instead of better climbing gear? But I would rather prefer that world because I want to be tested. I want to be, an emotionally stronger person, because that allows me to do greater things with my life and to have achieved some interesting things. Because if I am wishing for mundanity, I'm going to be bored. I'm not going to improve as a person, and that is truly the most fun thing you can do. I mean, not to sound like Picard here, but that is the real purpose of life. The real fun. It has nothing to do about the office you're going to return to or the money you no longer have. It is to improve yourself. That's the fun part. And you're removing the fun out of this equation because you're too worried it might be difficult. And it will be, but you can make fun of it. If fighting for your rights is something you're going to be perpetually doing for the rest of your life, you might as well turn it into something fun. Make every protest a party. Have a good time. Because really, getting back to those millennials or other people who have been in a rut for a while, they are overstimulated. They have not taken care of themselves to the point that small inconveniences can upend their entire day, their entire week. Wishing for these simpler times, they're just not going to happen. Not only is society getting more complex and more weird, but the rate at which it's doing so is increasing exponentially, and it's just going to keep speeding up. And believe me, this is something you want. You don't want to live in a simplistic world where people do not understand the oddities of their consciousness, their identity, whether it is being a system or trans or queer or a furry or whatever. You don't want to live in simplistic times where those just aren't options and you can't find your people. It is going to increasingly get weird, and the only thing you can really hope for, again, is to not revert to simpler times, to ask for shorter mountains, but to get better climbing gear, to enjoy the fire in the madhouse. Once we have taken care of ourselves, once we have given ourselves forgiveness and time to rest, but also maintain ourselves, which is very important, we have that energy to enjoy it. Really, this is just the equivalent of a person who is having this psychedelic trip and they have to come to terms with things that they really aren't ready for, and they love to simplistically blame it on a bad trip, but it's not a bad trip. You had to come to terms with things that you were eventually going to, but you now had to early and were presented more intensely than you maybe otherwise would have in your normal life. And this is really no different, that there is a fun world amidst this fire in the madhouse through the smoke of the flames, but you have to take care of yourself enough, enable yourself to actually enjoy that. and then join all the other people who are playing their fiddle as things burn. This isn't to say that enjoying this means being apathetic and just letting everything go to shit. That is not the point, but rather to find fun in climbing this otherwise daunting mountain and to find fun in this fire in the madhouse. For your media diet to be less about every potential bill that maybe, might, possibly be bad, and for what you center your consciousness around to be, we get to laugh at, Christy Nome's husband, or we get to laugh at this really dumb flub up. It is learning that if you are going to fill your media diet with a bunch of bullshit, it might as well be bullshit you can laugh at instead of bullshit that you're going to scare yourself with. Maybe one day more people can come to this realization. There is really no way for me to put this without sounding like a bit of an asshole. But oh well. This is a rant. I am not going to carefully construct this into a video essay to try to speech 100 this, to try to carefully craft it to get you to internalize that. There's no point to that. It is more so to put an idea out there, to let you know that there is absolutely the possibility and that it is absolutely worth doing, and that you are able to enjoy difficult times and to find some type of joy in this.